Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today's guest is Heather Robinson. She's joining us from Northern Virginia. She has been a single mom from the start. She has rebuilt her business, become a published author, and is expanding beyond expectations in just 2.5 years. Welcome, Heather. It is a pleasure to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so please share your journey. How did you become a single mom?
Ooh, well, I suppose I should start a little bit before I got pregnant. I was in a relationship. It ended a little bit traumatically, just like very heightened emotion. And when I kind of came back from that, I very quickly moved into another relationship with somebody I had known for quite some time, and I had perceived was somebody that I could start a family with, and we had sort of discussions with that. I very quickly, in a matter of a couple of months, went from ending a very big emotional, powerful relationship in my world to moving across the country with somebody else and, starting a new life. But I was really, I think, running. I was really running. I was really acting from my pain and my trauma. But what ended up happening is I moved across the country with this man and very quickly became pregnant, like within 5 days of getting there. And there were signs and messages that I received along the way that, maybe you should not keep going. But at the same time, there were lessons there waiting for me. So I ignored it. I got pregnant. And when we found out, he didn't want it. And I let him know that that was not an option. I wasn't going to do that. I was going to have the baby because I wanted it. He didn't have to be involved, but I wanted to be a mother, and I wasn't going to block that for myself. I wasn't going to block receiving that I wanted for so long. So until I was about 7 months pregnant, we tried to make it work. We're trying to figure out how to be friends and co-parent and be amicable and work with each other. And it ended very, very badly. He proved that he was very unable to support me through that process. And I'd essentially be on my own across the country from my entire support system, relying on this one human who was very much showing me that he couldn't support me in the transition to becoming a mother and support me as a mother. He just wanted his kid near him, and that was his ultimate goal. So when it became very clear to me that I was not going to get support from this man, I moved away. I moved back home to be with my family so that I would actually have some support throughout the process. And that's when, the healing sort of began, because I really had to dive in and understand what got me here and why I was in this experience, in this situation that I really desperately didn't want. And I tried for 6 months to at least just have this man be part of my kid's life in some way, but I was really forcing a lot. And so it took a lot for me to just fully release all of that and all of the expectations of him being supportive, of him being part of my kid's life, of him being the dad I always imagined my kid would have. So that's kind of my whole entryway into single parenthood. It was very much not desired. It wasn't wanted. It was, I recognize very different than a lot of other single parents' journeys. And in some ways it was a lot easier, and I'm really grateful and blessed that I didn't have to go through, a divorce. I didn't have to go through removing my child from their father, or separating them to making that harder. Like, it just never began. There just wasn't anything ever, he didn't put in the effort. Yeah, I made it harder for him, but that's because I needed the support. He didn't want to be that for me, or to be that part of, to be in that role for my son, in his life. So he's going to be 3 in February, in a few months. So for that entirety of his life, I have been at home in a very supported, held situation that's allowed me to do so much healing work, to rebuild my business, to write and share my story in these books, to really hone my skills and understand why I went through this, to help other people, how it applies to how I can help other people. And really ultimately came to a place of really deep gratitude for this man to have given me that experience that really catapulted me into this journey that was so important for me in my life, and incorporated into my purpose and what I do now. So to be now on the other side of that, and to be in this state of really deep gratitude for that experience, and for how he treated me, and for how he, treated my son, like all of these really highly emotional. Anybody who's gone through this knows how deeply heart-wrenching the process is, and to be on the other side and be in really deep gratitude for it is something I really didn't expect I could ever get to, especially so quickly. So I mean, there's obviously more things that are going to be healed as time goes on, but yeah, that's my story.
Awesome. What helped you heal, would you say?
What helped me heal? I think my persistence of understanding just why, like me asking the question, why would I attract somebody like this? Why would I be finding myself in this position when my dream and my plan was always just so drastically different? And trying to understand how I created this for myself. And really coming to terms with the fact that I did create this for myself, which is a hard one to really accept sometimes, but I did. And that really allowed me to dive deep in knowing that, like, I created this for myself. I'm not placing blame. Yeah, he has his responsibility for his behaviors and his actions and his stuff, but I had a huge role in creating this experience for myself, and owning that and taking responsibility for that allowed me to then actually heal the root of the problem, actually, see that pattern I was recreating and where it came from. And, once I can see it, then I can start to heal it and work with it. So, yeah.
I think it's huge, being able to recognize your own responsibility for your life, and instead of blaming others, but figuring out that we are in control of we make the choice. Of course, it's difficult to see when you're in the middle of it, when you're struggling, when you have that forced upon you, you think.
Yeah.
But getting there to that stage, I think, is very important and crucial. What kind of advice would you give to that person? I know it's only been 2.5, almost 3 years, but what would you tell her, knowing what you know now?
Gosh, so many things. I think one of them that's coming through is to trust yourself, because I really didn't, and that's why I ignored the signs that told me not to make those choices. But also to receive support, to know how valuable support is. I knew the value of support, and I wasn't going to settle for anything less, which is why I left. But when I recognized that he wasn't going to be able to fulfill my expectations and my needs, it was a battle of needs per se. He said, you don't need that. And I said, yes, I do. You don't get to decide what I need and how much support I need. But knowing that and really not settling for anything less, but then also being open to receiving that. So you can know all you want, I need this much support, this is a need of mine, but then are you actually going to receive? And for me to move home, it was humbling, right? I was 30 years old. I was 29 years old, moving back home, pregnant, single, like this mess I was trying to clean up. And it's really humbling to be like, wow, this kind of sucks. But also allowing that to be what it was anyway, and to receive the support I needed in that moment. Like, I can judge myself all day for needing that, just like he was judging me for needing that, but it doesn't matter. Like, that's where I was, and full compassion, trust in myself, trust that this is what I need, and full acceptance and compassion for that being where I was and what I needed at the time, and then able to actually receive it. I think that combination of things was really, really important in it, you know what I mean? When I was really in those moments, those really tough moments of that experience.
And how did it lead you to doing the work you are doing now?
The work I do now is very much something that I would have benefited from greatly had I known it existed, and ultimately what I went through kind of uncovered this awareness and understanding of these patterns and where they come from in our childhood, and how you can heal them, and how you can really start to build this relationship within yourself on your own when you didn't learn it as a child, of how to trust yourself and how to really love yourself where you're at, and how to manage your life in a different way, in terms of your emotions, in terms of taking responsibility for your actions and things. I was kind of flailing around for a long time in my 20s of, I'm an adult, I got this thing, and then realizing, wow, I really don't actually have any awareness of anything bigger than myself. And I think the process that I now guide other people through is a very similar but more concise and efficient process than what it took me over many years, that culminated in this experience, that culminated and kind of hit its head as becoming a single mom. But it took me over a decade of healing, of this process of understanding what was going on in my world, that landed at that point, because it was way more vital that I figure it out then. It was way more vital that I bring my awareness to these issues, to this root, to this how to do it differently process. And so now what I do is I guide people through that inner child healing, to find the root of these patterns that really aren't serving them, that's really preventing them from living the life that they dream of. And then, you dream of this like happy family and marriage and a bunch of kids and this beautiful house, whatever. And then you end up like at home with your parents, alone and pregnant. And it's like, wow, that is very, very different. Like, how did I get here? And so people experience this in many different kinds of ways at variable, degrees. And I can help them find that root that's kind of like perpetuating this pattern that they don't necessarily want.
Right. And it all started with you asking the questions, right? Mm-hmm. How did I get here?
Yeah.
The inner work, the inner child work, because I called many times when we grow up, like, what's this inner child work? It wasn't as popular, or even you didn't even hear that anywhere. Now it's becoming more and more common, because we know that all of our imprints, our blocks, stem from childhood, and that what we bring, and then those patterns can determine our life, and they're very subtle and subconscious. Just like a software is running on a computer.
Yep.
We have softwares running our life that which we don't even feel until we ask the question. And oftentimes we wait for some kind of event to occur for us to start asking questions. Oftentimes we just go through life ticking boxes off, fulfilling certain things, but not actually like, where are we going? What is this life about? So
Yeah, exactly.
kudos to you for asking the question and leading in that inner child work. I think is important, allows to uncover so many layers, like the layers of the onion. As we peel one off, there is another one, and we're never done.
Yeah, never, never ends.
What would you say is your number one personal superpower?
Oh. My superpower. Gosh. I think there's one aspect that's I'm very stubborn. And when I want to know why, I will figure out why.
Okay.
When I want something, I will get it. And when I don't get it, I will ask why. you know. So I think there's definitely this I am very stubborn, and it is definitely a shadow aspect of me, but at the same time, it's very much a superpower for me that allows me to achieve things that I otherwise wouldn't.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Stubbornness is good, can be good. I think I'm stubborn as well. When I want something, I'm gonna go get it.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to single parents who are just stepping onto that journey of single parenting?
I think the number one is to really get support and to understand what kind of support. When I first began working again and figuring out what I'm doing in the world after I became a mom and was rebuilding my business, a lot of what I did was helping people understand and figure out what kind of support do you actually need. So I work with the mother energy, the mother archetype, and the mother archetype, a lot of it does deal with structure and routine and support and these aspects that, if you think of the household as a mother creating these routines for their children, the discipline, the boundaries, and then they kind of allow it to flow and change as needed. There's very much that energy with the mother in your own world. I'm going to mother myself. I'm going to figure out what type of structures I need, what type of support I need. And when you are finding yourself alone again, and however you come to that space, recognizing that there's not a medal for doing everything on your own. And it's also not like a punishment either. There's no badge for I'm doing it on my own, and or a badge for being the victim. I have to do this on my own. And that was something I had to battle too. But just understanding excuse me, everybody needs support, and it is okay to receive support. We can't do everything. You can do everything. You don't need to do everything. There is a lot of ways that support can come into your world, whether it's emotional support, spiritual support, physical support. There's moral support, just somebody rooting for you, like, you've got this. I have a friend of mine who is a single parent, and she chose that from the beginning, and entered motherhood on her own. And every time that I find myself in this victim space, she's my moral support to say, look, you can do it on your own. I am doing this on my own. It's okay. And I'm like, you're right. So having these surrounding yourself and understanding whether it's something like I need to order my groceries just to make that part of my life a little bit easier, or I need to just pay somebody to clean my house and not clean it before they get here so that I can actually receive that support. Whatever it looks like, it can be in a million different ways, but lean into it 100%.
Yes, support is so important. I think growing up, we want to be self-sufficient. Asking for help is viewed as a sign of weakness. So it's kind of a shifting a paradigm in our personality that we don't have to do everything on our own. We can ask for help and give the ability for the other person to offer help, because in any given situation, two people benefit, the one receiving and the one giving. So give the gift of giving to the other person that allow you to help you, because sometimes we think nothing of something, and for another person could be a great deal.
Exactly.
So important aspect to have. Did you have a hero growing up, or a role model as you were recovering after your when you became a single parent?
No. No, I can't think of anybody. I know I had a lot of support, but I don't think that there was anybody. I found myself in a situation I didn't know anybody else to have experienced, to look up to. And so that kind of helped me to realize, okay, then I'm supposed to do something with this because this sucks. So I'm supposed to do something to like help others who find themselves in this situation. And I looked up to different people in different aspects, but not really like a hero of like, oh wow, like you've done this and I can just do what you did and thank you. There wasn't that experience for me.
Okay. Did you have a hero growing up?
Growing up, no, I never really had a hero. Sort of, I had a mentor when I was a teenager. I had somebody I looked up to and learned a lot from. And that was really, I think, important in my life to just kind of start that pattern of self-growth and self-discovery and just understanding myself and healing. I think that was probably really important to kind of trigger that part of my life and that path in my life. But it took an eternity for that to like evolve.
Oftentimes when we are learning something, it's not experienced right then and there. You can realize it years later.
Yeah.
It's like putting the foundation on a house that you build and finally having, I don't know, fresh air.
Yeah.
Years later.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I noticed when I was learning, I went through NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and the things that I was learning at the time I was learning them, I now realize those things. Not at the time when I was learning. Of course, they're a little bit, but you see it kind of unravel and have like a cascading effect of what you receive and now able to kind of, oh, wow, I learned it there.
Exactly. And then you start to see the layers unfold, just like the onion again, with learning something new that like, wow. And you start to see the connections being made and understanding, integrating, I guess, the learning and the understanding that you gained then, and really actually like, oh, this is how this applies to real life.
Yes.
That's what that actually looks like.
Yeah. Are there any fun projects you're working on that you want to share?
Yeah, I'm working on creating a group program. I've been working on it all year, which is really funny. There's been layers of this program that have developed and grown and expanded, and I'm really excited to kind of finally actually be like making it a tangible thing to share with people, because what I've gained in the process this year was real deep clarity of like, what, yes, I needed this and this was my experience, but what do other people also need? And what are they looking for when they're going through this sort of experience, whether it's single parenthood or, anything else, just like I want to find a partner in my life, or I want to, reach these goals that I seem to just not be getting to, whatever that looks like. These wounds, this inner work, and making it fun so that you can actually like get through it is something like I'm really excited to actually be putting out into the world. So
that's amazing. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
I think just the point that I did a lot of this work for me, for my own experience, because I have a picture of how my life should be. And I wanted to like, close the gap between what was happening and what I wanted. But the motivation behind it was very much, and has been my whole life, was very much like that, what I experienced as a kid, what that looked like, what that felt like, that didn't work. At least it didn't work for me. And I'm going to do it differently for my kid. And so I kind of, because everything was so drastically not what I wanted when I became a mom, and when I found myself alone with him, I was like, I can't pass this stuff on to him. I have to deal with this stuff. I want to do it differently for him. I've always aside from the wounds, aside from my experiences and my stuff, I've always wanted to do it differently with my kid and to raise him differently than how I was raised, and to do so for him so that he was closer to that like goal of whatever he's here for and whatever he wants in his life, that he doesn't have to go through so much of trying to figure it all out for so long. I wanted something different for him so he can actually like go further in his purpose. And I think just having that sort of perspective change of, yes, this is for me, but it's also for him, because I can't help him. I can't guide him. I can't really like support him in realizing his purpose if I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not supported, if I'm not able to give from a full cup, if I'm not my best version of myself. And that includes healing all this stuff that was really causing a lot of problems. So, whatever works. Sometimes people are like, I'm really suffering and I need to do this for myself. And sometimes people are like, I can't pass this to my kid. I need to help my kid. I need to do this for my kid. And once I did it for my kid, I was able to then realize, wow, actually, you know what? I deserve that too. So whichever path, like, gets somebody to that point, I think it's important to recognize that it's not just about us, that yes, it's about us, and it's also about somebody else, but we can't help somebody else until we help us first. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just like there's nothing wrong with asking for help.
That's so right. We can't help others until we help ourselves.
Yeah. And if you're going through that whole process of becoming a single parent or, navigating that sort of world, the kids are too. They have their own stuff, and how, I know that's like a really hard thing to navigate, is I'm going through this whole thing on the way that I'm perceiving it and the way that I see it and the way that I'm feeling it. Well, my kid is too. And how am I going to help them if I'm a wreck? I have to help myself. I have to figure out myself, deal with my emotions and my stuff about it so that I can help my kid move through that too, and to process what they're experiencing and their perspective of it. Because being a single parent, that child is experiencing it just from a different perspective. And that awareness is really, really helpful to kind of be like, oh, okay, maybe I should figure my stuff out and figure out too, how I can help them. Like, how can I support them through this? Because, anybody who's grown up with a broken family or a single parent or just without another parent, however you view what your experience was, knows that it's not the same as if you were to have had both parents there happy together, whatever, you intrinsically know that that's not the same experience and that your parents were going through something.
Yeah. Yes.
So, that that's there's something that you probably needed some support maybe you didn't get, and how can you change that dynamic in your own experience? I think it's really important to do the best that we can and know and fully accept whatever that is perfectly just as it is.
Yes. We always operate to the best of our ability with the resources we have available at the time. And a year later, what you did today could not matter anymore. Or
Exactly.
could be like, you were worried about it, now you're not worrying about it.
Right? Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story and your wisdom. If people would like to connect with you, where would they go?
They can find me on my website, iamhro.com. So iamhro.com. All of my links and info is there for everything that I do, a little bit of my story, all the fun stuff.
Awesome. And we will include all the links in the episode notes so people can connect further. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.